Thank you, Chairman Scott, and thank you, Ranking Member Thompson. I just want to give a shout out to all our farmers and producers around the country. I am absolutely so proud of them. I am so proud of what they have done when it comes to our environment. Sometimes they get vilified by environmentalists. And I just want to tell everyone, they're doing an amazing job. My district is probably 1 or 2 in the nation when it comes to production and agriculture. And we're doing all these things. You know, we're doing no-till, we're doing cover crops, we're doing nutrient management. In my district, there are carbon capture and storage projects that will sequester carbon directly from fertilizer plants, ethanol plants, never letting the carbon go into the atmosphere. I'm supportive of these projects and 45Q tax credits that encourages this type of construction. This is for any witness. As companies work to reduce carbon emissions on their own, what does that mean for the future of carbon credits? Is there a viable market for farmers and producers in the long term when you have the private sector doing something like this?
Thank you, Congressman. It's a great question. I think there is a viable market in the long term, but I think you point to something that's very important, that there are companies taking responsibility for their own emissions first. And that's, you know, in terms of the role of the voluntary carbon markets, they're meant to be complementary to those internal reductions. The voluntary markets are growing, they will continue to grow, but they will also complement the activities that companies are doing to reduce their own internal emissions, which is perhaps the bigger part of the solution or the challenge.
Yes, I would add to that in that I think what you are seeing, the huge growth in markets, is because we now have every sector actually acting to reduce their emissions, and every industry that operates across those sectors doing that. So the increased demand extends into the agricultural and farming and ranching, if you will, supply chain. So there is huge demand, and I think that demand will only go up.
Thank you for those comments. Thank you very much. As farmers look to engage in the carbon markets, my priority is to ensure that the farmers are empowered and have the technical advice needed to make these decisions. This is so important. Farmers succeed when there is certainty and transparency in any marketplace. While many have interest in the carbon markets, farmers are hesitant because of so much confusion. Mr. Milligan, in your testimony, you highlighted similar concerns for wheat growers. I'm wondering, from your perspective, can growers, what are some of the biggest barriers that we should be concerned about, and how do we rectify them?
The biggest barrier seems to still be the sound science behind what's actually out there in the market. And of course, wheat is so diverse, it's grown in so many different areas that wheat is kind of unique to the mainstream crops.
Yes, David.
If I may, Congressman, yep. I realize that to answer your previous question, it's really important to note that farmers, in terms of soil carbon, generate what we call removals of carbon from the atmosphere. And there's a very long-term market for those. There's a fairly limited supply of those kinds of credits in the market today. And as we move towards 2050, when the world is looking at achieving net zero targets, the removals will be a critical part of the question.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield back.